let's move on to our buy lows.
Shorter. This will probably be a quick little segment here. Our first buy low, I think, due to volume alone, and as you mentioned before, Miami has a sneaky good run defense.
Yeah,
we're gonna pump Jeremy Hill.
Yeah,
which a lot of people are gonna probably be skeptical of because they've been burned by Jeremy Hill in the past. But the whole narrative around the Cincinnati backfield was that it was going to be a split. You're never really going to be able to predict if it's a Gio week or if it's a Jeremy Hill week. But it seems like the way that they're running the offense, at least in the past couple weeks, most of the season, to be realistic, there was 1 week against Pittsburgh where Gio saw the majority of the touches due to game script. But they are feeding Jeremy Hill the ball.
Yeah.
He is receiving the ball. I mean, he's getting the ball in every situation, early downs, goal line, even some third downs, depending on the yardage to go situation. So Gio has been used very sporadically. Jeremy Hill, because of his name, people might be willing to just get rid of him. I mean, he didn't have a great week. He only put up 7 points against the Dolphins. Before that, he had an amazing game against Denver, buoyed by one really long run. But I like the volume we're seeing from Jeremy Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, he's almost getting close to that like Lamar Miller type of volume where he's getting 20, 25 touches a game, and he might be seeing that with consistency. And what's the schedule like coming up?
His schedule, it softens up. So we just have Miami, who's a pretty good run defense, but then Dallas, we just saw Carlos Hyde have success against them. New England, pretty, I would say at least neutral. But then Cleveland and Washington, the two defenses you want in a row. And then after that, it's his bye week. But then after that, it gets kind of rough. It's Giants, Bills, Ravens, Eagles. So he might be someone we're talking about selling come week 8 or 9. But he's a nice guy to buy now because he's only had one good game, and he got 20 plus touches last week, and he was hurt for I think like all of the second quarter of that game. He like took a hit to the shoulder and he was out, and then that's why Gio was playing at all. He might have gotten 30 carries if he was healthy. We don't know. So he's the volume play that you should be able to get pretty cheap because when he's only had one good week out of 4, it's hard for the person to ask too much.
Yep. Exactly. So, Jeremy Hill, go out and get him.
Go out and get him.
Get him. The next two guys are pretty obvious.
Yeah.
They have big names, or at least one of them has a really big name. So the likelihood that you can get them in a trade for a buy low is probably slim. But if you can trade them value for value, we're talking about going out and picking them up right now. The first is Odell Beckham Jr.
Yes.
Odell has been, he hasn't been bad. I mean, he up until this last game against Minnesota, he had been putting up the yardage. He just hasn't scored yet. And he's seeing a lot of negative press right now. I guess that, the team has had to sit him down and be like, oh, okay, Odell, you need to stop getting into fights with kicking nets. All right?
You
need to stop crying. Yeah, he can't win them. You need to stop crying on the sidelines. And I think he had an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty against Minnesota where he kind of lost his cool. So there have been some concerns, and then he came out and he said the football's not fun anymore. Football's not fun anymore, guys.
It's your job.
I don't like playing. Yeah. I hate making millions of dollars to play the game that I grew up loving.
This is like your classic like squeaky wheel gets the oil type of thing. He's complaining, he's being vocal. The team knows he's like their franchise player and they want him to be happy, so he's probably going to get like force fed this week in what we are assuming is a good matchup against Green Bay. Yes. This is I guess technically buy low because he hasn't had any monster week yet, but the person who owns Odell probably isn't selling that low. Maybe it's the difference between instead of paying a top 3 receiver price, you're paying like a top 6 or 7, which, I mean, if you can do, I guess still do it because it's, nothing about him has been the problem. Even this last week, it was against Minnesota. No one has been good against Minnesota yet this year. This is looking like one of those like historically good defenses.
Well, you saw what they did to Kelvin the week before.
Kelvin was gone. Nothing. He vanished from the game.
Yeah, he just disappeared. At least Odell had 3 catches against
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean that's almost in your favor because on national TV he got like kind of embarrassed by this defense. So
Yeah,
maybe the owner is a little bit worried. But his he doesn't face them again this year, and no one on his schedule is that scary. He doesn't play Denver or Seattle, which are the only other like scary defenses, and even Seattle, like Brandon Marshall has had a big game against them. So I don't know if they're like that scary for receivers really, if it's an elite receiver.
yeah.
But he gets like Green Bay, Baltimore, L.A.
And it's bye.
Yeah, then his bye, and then like Philly, which that's not great, but Cincinnati, that's great. Chicago, Cleveland, his schedule is like pretty great from here actually. It's just like the touchdowns haven't been there, and he's coming off of one bad week. So the hope is that you can buy him as more of like a mid-range wide receiver one than a high-end one, which I think he returns to as soon as this week.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it seems like you don't want to bank on the whole squeaky wheel narrative, but we've seen this happen time and time again, where the star player comes out, complains. Now, he's not necessarily complaining about playing time. He's complaining about, football, and he's just not having fun, and everyone's picking on him, that sort of thing. But still, he's, coming out, he's talking to the press. I mean, we saw it earlier this year with Manny Sanders, who's kind of turned it around. He came out and he was like, look, we need to get involved. You need to start throwing the ball to me. You need to start throwing the ball to Demarius Targaryen. And what has happened? Both Denver wide receivers have become they're not elite, but they're great fantasy assets again.
Definitely.
So I think we'll see Odell turn around. And again, this probably isn't really a buy low, maybe a buy for lower than you would have been able to buy him at the beginning of the season. But you're still going to have to give up a lot of value to get Odell. We're just saying it's worth it. And who once was thought of as like an untouchable player, now maybe the fantasy owner that owns Odell is willing to trade him for the right price.
Yeah.
Because before his start, Odell was probably looked at as this guy, like, no matter who you come at me with, unless it's Antonio Brown or something like that,
right,
there's basically no package that they would accept for Odell Beckham. But now that's probably not the case. You kind of have to scope out their team. Are they running back needy? Could you package a Melvin Gordon plus another wide receiver to get Odell Beckham? That could be possible. Now, the other wide receiver is probably going to have to be a decent one, right? You're not going to be able to – I don't think you'll be able to package a Melvin Gordon and like a bench wide receiver like Tyrell Williams or something. That won't be doable. But if you can package a Melvin Gordon plus probably like a wide receiver 2.
Like Jordan Matthews feels like the type of receiver we're talking about. Like you're kind of like firm middle of the road wide receiver 2 on like a good offense. He's had like 1 or 2 like pretty good weeks like that. That plus like a high-end running back should get you Odell, which I think I would do. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Or somebody like Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, Diggs is probably still perceived as this like safe wide receiver too, just because that one blow-up week was so big. That might be doable. Diggs plus like Melvin. Or like I'm like sneakily shopping around Carlos Hyde. He's not like a hard sell, but I'm just like let's see if anyone's interested. So maybe him plus one of these receivers might get it done. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you might have to offer somebody a little bit more than like Stephon Diggs, but there are wide receivers out there that you can give up to get Odell Beckham Jr. I think it's definitely worth it. Moving on to another hot name.
Hot name.
Hot. He's not in the same tier as Odell Beckham, that's for sure. But C.J. Manderson of the Denver Broncos.
Manderson. He's going to be a lot easier to buy because he had a great week 1 and then has kind of done not a whole lot since then. He's kind of had a couple touchdowns that have like kept his value okay, but like his yards per carry has dropped pretty dramatically since then.
It hasn't been good, really.
No.
I mean,
you could maybe look at his schedule. Like you played Tampa Bay, who have a good run defense, and then before that Cincinnati, who are also like a pretty decent run defense. But whether or not you think he's an amazing talent, his schedule is about to get just like dream-worthy soft with Atlanta this week, San Diego, Houston, San Diego again, Oakland, New Orleans. Like it's kind of the perfect schedule for a running back, at least over the next whatever that is, 5 or 6 weeks. So that's That's a guy, yeah, is purely schedule and being part of a good offense. Because I don't think he's like an elite talent. I think he's like above average talent. But in that offense against these defenses, especially with Simeon's hurt, maybe we're seeing Paxton Lynch start, in which case they probably go very run heavy.
Yes.
So now seems like the time.
I mean, we saw him blow up 25.9 fantasy points in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
After that, he got a pretty cakey matchup against Indy at home. And yes, he put up 15 points, but his yards per carry were just over 3.
Yeah.
Right? Well, like 3.5, 3.6 or something like that. Yeah. So, okay, maybe not like abysmal like Melvin Gordon's been putting up the past couple of weeks, but still not that great for your starting running back, your workhorse back. You want them to be around 4+ yards per carry. 4 is like the minimum that you want to see. You don't want to see them at 3.8, 3.7.
3.99.
Against Cincinnati, 3.99. Against Cincinnati, he had 14 rushes for 37 yards. So again, that was bad. That's under 3. Okay. And then Tampa Bay, 19 carries for 49 yards. Again, that's under 3. So the last 2 weeks, he's been under 3 yards per carry. And we actually saw Booker get more and more involved in the offense last week. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that Denver's souring on C.J. Anderson, but you can spin it that way if you're trying to get him in a trade.
Yeah.
Just look at his yards per carry. He was saved by a touchdown last week because against Cincinnati, he only had 4 points. Fantasy-wise. Against Tampa Bay, he had 11 points with the touchdown. So this touchdown basically saved his day. Mm-hmm. There is a narrative where you can get C.J. Anderson. And in that same kind of realm, I would be looking at maybe just throwing out a flyer on Devontae Booker. Yeah. Because with that schedule, if something were to happen to C.J. Anderson, or he goes out against Atlanta, doesn't have a good week. How long of a leash does he have? Their offense has been good. They're 4-0, so they probably give him a little bit of time to work his way out of it. But, he has been known to be injury prone. And I know they like Booker and Denver. So as like a end of the bench stash, I think he's just as good as anybody out there in terms of like handcuff.
Right.
There aren't very many elite handcuffs. But yeah, I would be trying to get Anderson because of his schedule. I'd be trying to get Booker as well because of the schedule, because of the way they operate that offense, and because of the fact that Anderson does get hurt. So those are both guys I would be looking to get right now.
Spoken like a true Booker owner. No, I'm with you on that for sure.
Yeah.
All right, one last buy. This is sort of the long-term buy. And I wouldn't go out and break your bank to get this guy, but it's if the owner is in trouble, if they've started off and they're 0-4 and 1-3, and they need to do something, then poke at this Doug Martin, who has he's still hurt, and they get their bye week, so you're not gonna get to use him until week 7. But then after that, his schedule, my lord, San Francisco, Oakland, Atlanta, Chicago, Chiefs. Seattle, that's not great. San Diego, New Orleans, Dallas, New Orleans. That the playoff stretch. New Orleans, Dallas, New Orleans. That's the best running back playoff schedule right there. Unless New Orleans somehow figures out how to play defense between now and then, which I feel confident that defense will still be bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the long term play. If you're like 4-0 or 3-1, and you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to make playoffs, and you have some extra assets, Doug Martin is a guy to sort of target with those.
Yeah, I mean, if you are 3-1, 4-0, you feel comfortable in the next couple of weeks with your depth. Mm-hmm. Would you go out and make a Melvin Gordon for Doug Martin trade?
Oh man, I would, and I bet you could get something to go with it. Like I could bet you could be like Doug Martin and like Doug Baldwin. Maybe you could do that because he's on his bye. He's only had one good week, maybe, or like Jordan Matthews. You could probably get. You could probably get Doug Martin and like a wide receiver too for Melvin Gordon, based off of like what his performances have been. I mean, I'd ask for less.
That's tasty, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would take Doug Martin and like, wide receiver 3, like who we got in this list, like Crabtree. Crabtree's been really good. You probably wouldn't be able to get him. Like Macklin. I would do Doug Martin and Macklin for Melvin Gordon. I think that was actually doable.
And Macklin has been underwhelming so
Yeah.
far this year. So, and Kansas City's going on their bye this week. They might turn things around.
Yeah.
He's another person you can go out and buy low.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that. And in the same vein, this isn't really a buy low, but if we're talking about general trade targets, because this segment is we're talking about guys you can go out and get or guys you need to get rid of, right? But basically, the whole point is making your roster better for the upcoming stretch. So guys I would be looking at targeting in a trade, all right? Forget sell high, forget buy low, but just guys that I want, okay? So you might have to give up pretty good value to get these players,
Yeah.
but I'm looking at them because I really believe that they're going to either continue with the production or they're about to blow up. The first guy, he's started off really well, and that's Mike Evans. Okay, You just mentioned Doug Martin's playoff schedule. Well, they play on the same team. New Orleans does not have a good secondary, and Mike Evans gets New Orleans, Dallas, New Orleans in the playoffs. Okay, well, his upcoming schedule, you say, well, you don't want to look too far ahead. Well, you already mentioned his upcoming schedule. He gets Atlanta, or he gets well, this week he's playing Carolina, right? Who they haven't been this elite defense.
Right.
Then he goes on his bye, which is why you might be able to swing a trade for him now, okay? Because he gets Carolina, who some people might perceive as being this elite defense. He only put up 5.9 points against Denver, and then he goes on his bye. But coming into Week 7, he gets San Francisco, he gets Oakland, he gets Atlanta, Chicago, Kansas City, Seattle, and then San Diego, New Orleans, Dallas, New Orleans. So Mike Evans, go out and get him in a trade. You'll have to give fair value for him, but I think he will be a bona fide wide receiver 1 the rest of the way. Maybe like a top 8 play.
Oh, yeah. I think he's definitely worth, like, we talk about buying low. Evans is worth just paying the correct price for, like whatever Mike Evans at his peak costs, because he's been outside of last week where he played Denver, and no one does well against Denver. Outside of that, he's been amazing. There's only been 4 wide receivers. This is sort of a preview of keeping score. There's only been 4 wide receivers drafted as starters who have had multiple top 12 weeks so far this season, and Evans is one of them. And the others are like, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, AJ Green. The guys where the names are their names are too untouchable almost. Mike Evans is like just low enough that like you have to pay a high price, but it's not stupid high like it would be for one of those guys. And he's producing just as well as them.
Yep. Yeah, he leads the league in targets right now. He has 48 targets, right? He's the wide receiver 6 in terms of production. He's been pretty, outside of that Denver game, he had been the only wide receiver to really have solid weeks in each of the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he's the guy. We've seen Tampa Bay just get torched because their secondary is terrible. And they're going to be in games where they're going to be forced to just air it out.
Yeah.
And Evans is basically their only target there. I mean, they have these slot-like receivers, Adam Humphries, Vincent Jackson is still alive, but I mean, he's not doing much. So Mike Evans, go out and trade for him. He's a trade target. Another guy I want to go out and buy just because he started off the season slow, but because of the offense that he's in and because of the rapport he has with his quarterback, I think you need to go out and look at Amari Cooper, at buying him, especially because of what we've seen Michael Crabtree do. And as somebody who watches Oakland with a keen eye, defenses really key in on stopping Amari Cooper. They don't want to get beaten by Amari Cooper, which opens up the other side of the field for Michael Crabtree, and we've seen it backfire because Michael Crabtree is a wide receiver 5 right now. Through 4 weeks, through a quarter of the season, he is a top 5 wide receiver behind guys like AJ Green, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, and Marvin Jones. So those are your Marvin Jones. 2 Jones. Motherfucker Jones.
Motherfucker Jones.
Yeah, Michael Crabtree, he is going to force teams to pay attention to him because up until this point, he's been getting the softer cornerback matchup.
Yeah.
He hasn't been seeing the safety help that Amari Cooper always gets. But, I mean, he just lit Baltimore up. And he has the type of skill set that teams are going to have to pay attention to. I think it's going to be a little bit more even. And Amari Cooper, Derek Carr loves Amari Cooper too. I know the narrative is that Derek Carr has this like infallible rapport with Michael Crabtree, but his rapport with Amari Cooper is just as strong. They're always trying to get him involved, and he has had mediocre weeks in each of the past. Outside of week 1, really, he hasn't done too much. And with the way that they're passing the ball in Oakland right now, Derek Carr looks like a legitimate quarterback in this league. I won't quite put the elite tag on him yet, but he is trending in the right direction. If you look at his statistics, he is only behind Matt Ryan in terms of rating, quarterback rating. He is only behind Matt Ryan in terms of touchdowns thrown. I think he's third in terms of touchdowns thrown. So they're airing the ball out. Amari Cooper's going to get his. So go out and trade for Amari Cooper. Again, this is probably like not a buy low. You might be able to get him at a lower value than you would have at the beginning of the season, but I would be willing to pay equal value to get Amari Cooper right now.
Yeah.
Done.
I don't have any qualms with that, with buying the number 2 wide receiver in Oakland. Damn.
Bam. Well, hey, we've been pumping Michael Crabtree all offseason. So
yeah, that's true.
The fact that he was an 8th round pick and Amari Cooper was a 2nd round pick, that's criminal. I don't know where that came from. I think it's just because everybody hates Michael Crabtree.
They feel burned from like a couple of years ago when he was like this trendy sleeper and it didn't work out, and everyone's like, "Fuck Crabtree, I'm done." And like, he shouldn't have been done because he's been a beast.
He's been a beast, man. And his hands, I don't think he drops anything. His hands they're sticky.
He's got them sticky hands, the stick-em.
That last touchdown against Baltimore, my God.
Totally.
He just reached up those mitts and snatched it out, tapped the toes in the back of the end zone. That was a beautiful throw,
classic football catch.
Yeah, well, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I don't want to pump the Raiders too hard.
Oh, okay.
3-1 Oakland Raiders. They're back. Raiders.
Okay.
So that's it.
That's it for our buys and our sells and our targets.
Yeah.
Our trade talk. Trade corner is done.
Trade corner is done. So follow us on Twitter at BenchStaffFF. Send us your questions. We are happy to answer them. Comment on our YouTube videos. We really appreciate you guys watching our videos, commenting. You make us want to make more content, so keep on doing it.
Yes.
Ding!
Exactly. Like, comment, subscribe. Be our best friends. And
please.
And we will catch y'all on the flippity floppity.
Flippy floppies.